call, Barry,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Brad,
Here.
Corey,
Here.
Bo,
Here.
Shanda,
Here.
David.
Here.
And we also have Candace, who's virtual, as well as Brad. It's time for a reorganization of the board.
There's a change in personnel on the board. So this is not something that you do on a regular basis like you do for like a board of county commissioners. And so if there's a reason you want to reorganize, that's fine, but usually you don't do it until the board changes. And we really haven't been doing that in the past anyways, though, really. So, I mean, so
So it's just, it's more random, is what you're saying? I mean,
more random.
yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so,
Yep.
meaning, could it be because Brad came on last meeting? Is that a reason to reorganize?
That would be fine. Yep, yep. But I'm just saying that we don't have to do that every single year.
We can, but we don't have to. Is that the answer, or we're not supposed to?
You don't do it unless there's a change in members on the board.
Does he count as the change?
Sure, that would be fine.
That's
Yep,
fine?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
What Helen had proposed or had discussed at the previous board commission meeting was aligning the portfolio commissioner with the board chairman. And if that was a consideration that the board wanted to make for the
that-
ease of Jeremy's communication and how things were run.
And that could work out, but like I said, when that was brought up, that can't really be a thing because there's two people on here that are not commissioners and they could both be the chair of this too.
So Karen, this question then, do we need a motion then to reorganize, or do we just go into reorganization?
We might as well make
I
it
think
tough.
you just go into electing a new chairman would be fine, and a new vice chair really at this point, especially since you just got Brad on the board. So I don't think you need a motion, just do it.
So I could make a motion for Bo Anderson as the chair of the park board?
Sure.
Yes.
I will do that.
Do I have any other nominations? Where'd Steve go? Do we have any other nominations? Do we have any other nominations? Do we have a second to cease nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for Bo Anderson as chairman?
Second.
Okay, roll call. Barry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Bo?
Yes.
Shanda?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Okay, and I will give the gavel over to Bo to elect a vice chair.
Okay, entertain motions, or a motion for nomination for vice chair.
I would nominate Shanda as vice chair.
Okay, any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, there'll be a motion and a second for casting unanimous ballot for Shanda, for vice chair.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Discussion? Roll call vote?
Steve?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Bo?
Yes.
Shanda?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And Barry?
Yes.
Okay, moving into minutes. Review the minutes and give me a motion to approve when you're ready.
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Discussion? Roll call vote.
Brad?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Bo?
Yes.
Shanda?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Okay, financials?
Real quick, there's a little attachment, just a little spreadsheet. Just a real quick kind of summary of the last 3 years. Just to give you an idea. Obviously, there's some big discrepancies. If you look, like again, 2019, oil revenues in revenue, is $7,000 or $70,000 more. And then with 2020 and 2021, adding my salary. But just to give you an idea of what money we're spending year to year, it does not include any transfers. So when the county, to each of the last years, counties transferred money in, it doesn't include those transfers in the revenue money. But you can also see like campgrounds, how we did drop a little bit off of last year. Again, and you can look, it was Little Egypt. And in 2022 or 2020, people were leaving them there 2 weeks at a time, everybody. And now this year, people maybe had to go back to work, I guess. A little bit more. But that's just where we're at as far as for the last 3 years. And again, as I said before, as far as oil royalty is a big revenue for us, and it's just continued to increase every month in the last 5 months now, which is hopefully we're getting closer, and hopefully that's not just for parks but for our whole community. Anybody have any questions about any of the financials? Just wanted to kind of give you where we've been at. We didn't meet in December, kind of give you a year-end review of how we did.
Okay, any other questions for the finances? Okay, move into new business.
Grazing lease?
Yeah, Nevin Sorensen grazing lease, Blacktail Dam.
Okay. Here's the story. On February 28th of 2019, Nevin or Rick, whichever, paid 2015 through 2019 in full. They paid $256 a year. Okay? And if you notice in your packets, it showed that that wasn't quite what they were supposed to pay, starting for 2020. And I think the reason this got all confused is that Nevin never got the lease to sign, so he never paid because he didn't get a lease. I have the lease ready. Okay, on the grazing lease for 2020, he paid $256. So on the grazing lease for 2020, he owes us $62.80 for the $313.80 that he's supposed to be paying. So that's what he owes on the grazing lease for 2020, and he needs to sign it. Okay, the grazing lease for 2021, he never paid us a dime because we never sent him a lease. So he actually owes us $318.80 for last year. And then he owes us $318.80 if that is your choice to keep the lease at the same amount, which is $256, $7 and, right. And that is supposed to be synonymous with the state lease, and I don't know if it is or not. And so what you have to decide for the 2022 lease is how much you're going to charge him for 2022. And then and it's approximately 40 acres that he has. And then I have to have, this 2022 I'll have to change because it has the wrong chairman's name on it. But the other ones I think will be okay. And so
So this wasn't a multi-year lease?
No, I guess it's year to year. I don't know why you don't make it 5 years to run with the state lease.
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, so you really have to decide a couple of things too. You have to decide for what you want to charge them for the lease. The current lease that we have is $7.97 an acre, and that's sort of lined up really with the states at that time. However, the state executed a new lease with Nevin Sorensen for the Blacktail Dam area last year, and it was at $7.40 an acre. So I guess the question is, going forward for at least for this year, do you want to stay at the $7.97 per acre, or do you want to lower it, or what?
Well, that's board discretion, I guess. When
I mean,
it's
it sounds like a fair number.
$7.97 is pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it would be in our best interest to set the rate and then put it on a lease and be done with it. You know, like, I mean, I thought we would have did a 5-year lease, but it was just an annual agreement.
Putting it on a 5-year lease would be really nice.
Yeah.
Then that way it's set. All we have to do is send out the lease every year. He sends the money back in instead of waiting for the commission to decide what to do.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I think we're making a mistake to do a 5-year lease with our master plan and things that are gonna happen out there. So we need to stay at the 1 year, in my opinion.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, is
That's
do
what I was
do
gonna
we
ask
have,
also.
we have plans on using that in the future? How soon do you suppose we're gonna?
But yeah, we just don't wanna tie our own hands.
Even if you could put a bike path in there or anything, or walking path, you wouldn't want the cattle, or he wouldn't want the cattle in there with that type of situation, probably.
Okay.
Can we do I mean, the park board signed December of 19. I mean, can we do a 3-year lease, which would be 20, 21, 22? I mean, he would sign it now, but then the rate, because he owes us for 20, or he owes us a little bit for 20, owes us for 21, and then he would be paying the rate for 22?
So you could do a 3 years for 22, 23, 24.
No,
No?
just 20, 21, 22, and then we would revisit it again for 23.
Yes,
Can we do that?
yes.
Okay.
So you want to keep it the same for 3/18/80?
Which,
I would say yes, but that's if somebody wants to make that motion, go ahead.
What's the benefit of making it a 3-year lease when it's back? Can't we just say, charge the same rate for these 3 1-year leases, and then we're not setting it as a 3-year lease that he's gonna expect?
sure,
Cause it's we've already got agreements done for that, so I don't think we need to change those.
No.
I would make a motion to keep the 3 leases the same and charge the 3/18/80 per year, and whatever needs to be figured out, if he owes for some, do it that way. Is that okay?
yep, and then authorize the chair to sign the leases.
And I authorize the chair to sign the lease.
Okay, is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, Brad seconded. Any discussion on this motion?
I know all of the Swansons pretty well, so I can talk to them and tell them, hey, here's the deal. We're looking at developing that land in the future. We just don't want to have our hands tied for 5 years down the road. I'll talk to them.
Okay, any other discussion? Discussion, roll call vote.
Corey?
Yes.
Bo?
Yes.
Shanda?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Brad?
Yes.
Okay, Park District Facility Reservation Grant.
That grant came out, a couple people sent that to me, State Parks put that out, the deadline is January 1st. And Tony Hillick, he was our contact for OHV, he came up and presented to us.
Press the mic button, sorry, Charlie.
Tony Hillick, he's also the, Can I just come up here, then I don't have to push the button? Tony Hillick, he came up and presented for OHV, to us. He's also administering this grant for state parks. I emailed him. He initially said that we would be eligible for that, and then he digged a little deeper. And you know, like I kind of mentioned to him, we're not a park district. They were designed for park districts. We're a department of the county, so we're not eligible for that one. But I appreciate any other grants you see along the way. Keep sending them my way, and I'll find out and try to apply for whatever we can.
Okay, Winter Park feasibility study.
You know, Lindsay and I had just been talking, we just threw this on the agenda. Just wanted to know, you know, we applied for that grant before and didn't get it through state tourism. Is this something that we would be interested in still doing, and sooner rather than later? Is it something that we should, you know, at least come up with some pricing on and find out what it would cost? Is this something we want to do a little work to say, is this really a step we want to do, whether we got that grant or not, or do we want to hold off and see if we can find another grant opportunity to go along with it? Just kind of want to get the board's feel. Lindsay and I have been going back and forth, and just want to get your feel on it.
Where would we do this at? I mean, a little bit at a couple of them, or just one in particular?
Or maybe, probably more likely, purchase new land. We look, you know what I mean, look at it something like, do we want to build something similar to what they have in like the Turtle Mountains, or, you know, even better, right? Some type of ski hill, some type of snow tubing, some type of one new place where it would be a park where people go, you know, hopefully, you know, who knows what, hopefully at some point you can get some outside vendors to build some kind of lodging that could be next door. I don't know.
I guess my only reservation would be with our master plan coming out. I think we're gonna be looking at a pretty substantial expenditure. Maybe we should put this one on the back burner unless we could use it with.
Heck, no.
I guess I'm of the belief, it never hurts to ask. It would be nice to know what it would cost, Jeremy, so I think if we started there, at least we have an idea, we know what the study's gonna cost us.
Okay, I can do some, like, I can work with Lindsay and maybe even the CVB a little bit and come up with, at least get something to maybe be ready to send out for some quotes or get some pricing on. See what I can do before the next February meeting.
But the only reason I suggest that, with all due respect, Commissioner Hanson, we have 6 months of winter. It'd be nice to start taking advantage from a recreational perspective of the other half of the year that we have, and get people outside and enjoying our nice cold weather.
So would that feasibility study, would they take a look at our existing ones now and see if we can build
What we can add on it.
what we can do with what we have now rather than purchase, or?
I would hope so, yes. Yep.
There's plenty hills out there, you know, so.
Well, there's that, and then we have the outdoor ice skating on natural surfaces. If we have, you know, a lake or pond, or add that, incorporate that all together. You could host Winterfest of some type.
Right, I mean, yeah, I agree. Like, at what point are we, you know, maybe even focusing more on events than everyday type things? Like I said, there's no reason why we couldn't try to have a weekend of pond hockey or a outdoor curling event, or, you know, maybe rather than facilities, it needs to be more events. I'm not sure. Polar plunges in February.
I'll be right up for it.
Okay.
All right, so I think that's really it on that. I just want, like I said, I'll do some work on it, and I'll come back with some more information in February.
Okay, sounds good. Rural water applications.
Just looking forward and looking as we move forward in developing our parks. I've contacted, Rural Water, Northwest Rural Water, and then RT Water, both about what it would take to get drinking water to Epping, McGregor, and Coteray. We already have it at Blacktail, and we already have it at Little Egypt. So what it would take to get there, and all of them have a very minimal application fee, $250, and then after you get that application fee, then they kind of work with you with the route and how it do and everything. So I think unless anybody has any issues with that, I'm going to apply for that and kind of get the ball rolling. I think that, you know, drinking water is something that would make a big difference in those parks. So just kind of give me a heads up on that. Just kind of looking at trying to stay a little bit ahead of our master plan and be ready to go with some of these other things. So that's it for that.
Okay. Reservation website demo.
That's gonna be Lindsay. She's ready.
So over the past couple weeks, we've been working with My Sites, which again is the vendor that will actually be doing the reservation piece of it. And then another company called Government Windows, which will set up the credit card processing element of it. We're still working on the relationship between the two, but things are moving and we should be in a pretty good direction for that. But essentially what we can show you today is what this would look like integrated onto our site and how a user or a camper would go to reserve their site and pick it. There's also a bunch of options for all of the like confirmation emails and things, and so we're just working through updating all those templates, but we won't necessarily show those today. So this is a hidden page on our website right now, but this mirrors what our current website looks like for, say, McGregor Dam. And so what the My Sites platform provides are different widgets that we can integrate on the site. So directly from our website, without having to leave, someone can pick the dates that they would want to camp. So we'll say they want to do it next weekend, and then directly from our site, it'll take them to an interactive option where they have copied all of our maps. And so working with GIS and My Sites and Jeremy to getting all of our individual sites set up so they can actually see the specific location of them to be able to select along with all of the amenities of the park. So if they know that they have kids and they want to stay by a playground, they can see exactly where that is. And then by clicking that interactive site, one day we might have individual site pictures for all of our parks. That day is not today, but we could. And then it'll have the unit size information. And then this will come in handy too for, say, like at Blacktail, where we have different unit size limitations. If they know that their camper would be too big or too small, they would be able to see that here, along with another list of the amenities and whatnot. And they would be able to then continue through the booking process directly online. And then once they book, they get a confirmation email saying that they've reserved it, and then they would get a follow-up email saying that they're ready to check in. And essentially the way we were thinking of running it is that everyone then would be able to check in online, and if they have issues or whatnot, they would be able to contact us for that. So that'll be kind of something to figure out this summer on how that goes, but we would anticipate having signs and such posted at the campsites, at the parks, to also help with the instructions. And then in addition to being able to reserve a site directly from the individual park page, we'll have a new web page where they can then just select their park that they want to go reserve. The way that this works from the My Sites end is it's not one website where you go on their end and you can pick any park. There are individual links that are associated with each park. So that's why you would have to do it individually. So if they came to this page, they'd say, oh, I want to go to Blacktail. They would be able to reserve from Blacktail as well. And then it's the same deal with the interactive map where they can pick the different sites to check out. Any question?
Is it mobile friendly?
Kind of. The hard part is anything that's why we opted to not go what's called an iframe route with embedding this map directly on our site, because it wouldn't be. But by using this external link, it's a little bit better. But the sites are still kind of small, but it still works that way. And then when you check in, essentially the email that you get is just an email with a big button that says check in, and you're able to confirm your information. So that check-in process is very mobile friendly and it's easy to use.
So if a person were to pick, spot 12 or whatever, when you get checked in, does that automatically come off so someone else can't get it also?
So as soon as you reserve a site, the site will actually turn red on the map. So like all of these are green right now because they're available. And then as soon as a site gets reserved, it would turn red. So regardless of the check-in piece, if someone was searching for a site the same weekend that you had already had it reserved, it wouldn't be shown as available to them. Yeah.
So Lindsay, they're charged for that the minute they push reserve?
Yes, so then they can pay with a credit card as soon as they pay reserve. There are like built-in ways on the site that in the event that they have not paid in full prior to their time of check-in, they can't check in until they have paid in full.
Okay.
But I don't think ours is going to be set up to do that. I think they're going to have to they pay in full as soon as they get the reservation. And
So
we're
s-
not charging a cancellation.
So somebody reserves a spot and they can't make it, so they cancel it. Does that spot then turn back from red to green?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
Booking.awesome.
Great.
How far in advance can they book, or how long of a period?
So Jeremy and I just had a philosophical conversation about that.
We still, when we talked before, when we started this whole process, the board did mention that they do like the idea of still having the availability to show up that day. And not everything is reserved 6 months out. So we're still kind of working on that, still working under that, that idea that we'll have for each park, we'll have some that you can reserve a period of time out, and other ones that you can reserve and can't reserve till day of. So even though you can reserve it online, you still can't reserve it until check-in time that day. So you have to go there and be there, pretty much. I mean, you can wait online and wait right till check-in time and not be there, but, and there's gonna be we know there's gonna be some hiccups along the way, but we're gonna learn. As far as how many sites and which sites, again, Lindsay said we have just been talking about that. And, again, hoping that in our next meeting, we have at least a plan for saying, hey, sites this, and this, you can reserve in advance. Sites these, you're gonna have to wait till day of. And then get some input and keep moving forward on it. About right?
I just have one question, and I'm sure it's a dumb one, but how do you police this? How do you make sure this works? So I pull up and I put my camper there, and now Commissioner Anderson had reserved it. Who takes care of the fight?
I think I feel good about I feel good about my camp host situation again, except at McGregor. I've got good camp hosts kind of already lined up, except at Blacktail, but we're at Blacktail so much that I'm not as much worried about that between me and my staff. But yeah, definitely something I think about too. But I do have, like I said, my camp host at Epping is going to be police officer this summer. I've had a couple people at Little Egypt that have always done pretty well, and it's just going to be that, hey, once it's reserved for the day, like this day, hey, we got to figure out a way to market. You know what I mean? Whatever that is. None of our campgrounds, I mean, we're getting bigger, but even still, Little Egypt still only has 21 campsites, 22 including the host. So it's not like it's a huge one, right? There's just a couple a day. A lot of our hosts tend to spend, that's the thing I've noticed with Coda Ray and Little Egypt, a lot more time on the weekends than maybe as much in the week, which is, again, I think okay because my staff's there so much during the week. We make the rounds down there. So it's going to be learn and do better and learn and do better.
Camp hosts
there-
get like a
Jeremy?
daily report of reservations or something?
I think they can be just set up like everyone else and just receive the email too, as soon as any reservation goes through.
Who receives the reservation, Jeremy?
Who receives the reservation notification?
Correct.
The customer would receive one, but then also we could set it up for whoever we want. If we want to get notified, we could, literally put in any emails we want. But in general, it would be me. And then camp host specific to park.
If somebody reserves a spot and then we or your group marks that spot, are you saying to hold that spot? You must receive that information then, and then go out and reserve that spot. And then what type of windproof, waterproof type marking would you use?
I think it has to be something more that just like hangs or sits on there, or I don't know. We gotta come up with something. But yeah. Yeah, just or something that and things are gonna get pulled off and people are gonna do things and like I said, we'll just have to keep getting better and better.
Well, I think all your parks are fairly the same as far as power posts and everything else. Would you mark the power post? Put something on the power post that would be not permanent, but, you know, mark it for that day, to reserve that spot.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, Mark, somehow that way. I still like Commissioner Kemp's idea a couple months ago, figure out a way to light them green or red, open or closed. But,
Oh, sure.
but something along that line.
Yeah.
Okay. Lindsay's been pushing really hard on this project. Again, Lindsay's gonna be taking a leave here shortly and trying to get as much done as we can. So I appreciate her, all her help and the GIS guys too. On the front end of the GIS guys were working a ton of hours on this and I really appreciate all they've done because we've come a long way here now.
So the intention is that at least these website pieces and our technical pieces can get done before I go on maternity leave. And then that gives Jeremy some time this spring and the board to work through the policy pieces of it. And then we would anticipate publicly releasing it about the middle of May for people to physically start making reservations in time for Memorial Day. And we'd be able to announce it, be able to make the announcements that this is coming so that people are aware. And then that way we're in a really great position for 4th of July.
Okay, anything else for the reservation discussion? Not master plan?
Candace, are you still there?
I'm here. Good morning. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I know you're all eager to see how much money you wanna spend on all your park sites.
Are you working on the volume, Lindsay?
So Candace, is there any way that you could get a little bit closer to your mic? We're maxed out on audio volume here in the room and it's a little quiet.
All right, can you hear me okay now? Or should I yell louder?
I would use your outdoor voice.
Outdoor voice, got it. Or my speaking to teenagers voice, as I call it.
Your son is in trouble voice.
That's right. All right, good morning. What I want to do today is kind of go over the estimations that we put together for each of the park sites. And then I also want to talk about priorities because we've taken an initial stab at, determining what might be high priority and medium priority, and then what might just be kind of the low or deferred priorities for each of these sites. But that's where I really need some feedback from you as the county board, because you might have other ideas in terms of what you want to actually get accomplished and at maybe, what sites might rank a little bit higher than others. So with that in mind, the first thing I'm going to do is talk about high-level master plan costs that were prepared. We did these knowing that, this is a 1,000-foot level that we're doing these estimation costs at. And so these costs will be further refined as you actually go into a design process to get down to final design. And that's when those estimates really get tightened up and become more accurate. But there are just a lot of unknowns at this point. So they are conservative, so they will be a little bit on the higher side. And then we also have a lot of percentages we just toss in there at this point in terms of one, general construction costs. So these costs are based on if you were to bid this out and have a bonded and insured general contractor doing all the work. So it doesn't take into account any work that might be done by volunteers or partnerships or even county staff where you might get some efficiencies in those costs. It also adds in at this point a 15% additional cost in terms of contingencies. So those are the unknowns. We don't know exactly what the site soils consist of, what we might run into, those types of things. So again, as design progresses, that contingency percentage will continue to go down. So we try to get that from the master plan level at a 15% down to more of a 5% contingency prior to construction. And then, of course, we also have an additional 15% cost at this point for what might be permits, professional design and engineering fees that are also added on. So right now, it's kind of putting that percentage on top of everything, but keep in mind that there might be a lot of items in here that you can actually get constructed and implemented without a professional design, engineering, or permit fees related to that element. So some things you will need that, other things you won't. You can just kind of work with certain vendors to get those things implemented. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk about the high-level costs. So Blacktail Dam, to do everything that was kind of shown on the master plan, including paving like the primary loop all the way around the lake and getting a trail around there, the subtotal came in at roughly about 6.5 million. After you add in all the extras for the contingencies, construction costs, all that good stuff, it comes in around like 9.4. So you know somewhere between the 6.5 and 9.5 is where actual construction, might fall. All right, Epping Springbrook, for everything that we see on this site. Construction subtotal is 3.5 with all the extras on there, closer to 5. Coda Ray, construction subtotal 3.2 million. For the base, grand total 4.7 with all the extras. And Little Egypt, subtotal 3.6 million for the base and a grand total up to 5.2 million. Lookout Park isn't shown on here, but what we had shown on that little plan was adding in some walkways to make it more accessible and then adding a little shelter. So roughly between 47,000 to maybe 56,000. Then McGregor Dam comes in at about 1.9 million up to 2.7 million. So those are just, again, the high level costs for each of those sites. From there, we kind of took it down to what might be high priority projects. So this is where I want to talk a little bit more, get some feedback on you on if you think that this is meeting your goals as a board and what we might want to adjust in terms of priorities for the master plan. So with Blacktail Dam, obviously what we thought would be the high priority would be getting this bypass road right here so it's not going directly through your existing campground. That will just make for a much safer, more pleasant experience for the campground itself. So we have a cost for that as well as, redoing a dump station at this site. And then an additional alternative cost if you wanted to actually pave that. Another high priority item we thought you might want to, progress with is the actual beach area improvement. So that is adding these additional campsites in here within the trees. That way we can adjust and take away a couple of those stalls right next to the beach to allow just for more parking and improved playground and experience over there. So it's just kind of finishing off this little peninsula by the beach. So those were kind of considered the high priority. More that you'll see along the medium priority. So the next phase after that would be starting to tackle your main campground for any modifications. Now, the first thing we would want to do is actually start implementing some of these pull-through campsites in that main area so that we can get them out of your peninsula right here and actually start developing that as a recreation area with maybe a swimming beach, shelters, and adding that comfort station in here. So those are more of the medium priorities that would fall later. The rest of the campground could actually not be constructed until this boat ramp is actually relocated over here. And that will be pending, Game and Fish, being able to help do that and authorizing that reconstruction effort. They don't really like to redevelop their boat ramps unless it's necessary. The one thing that you have going for you at this site is the existing ramp is not in great condition. It has, some humps of steepness kind of going down there, and the dock area is pretty beat up. So it at least ranks low enough that maybe it warrants being redeveloped. But once that happens, then you can kind of finish this development here. All the other items that we're showing on here can just be done over time. So any improvements to to the primitive area or the trail systems here, disc golf, and then the ATV area. Again, for now, we're just showing those as more of a low priority or deferred if you want to concentrate more on actual campground development. So looking at that for Blacktail Dam for the high priority items, as I said, the bypass road and dump station. There's an add alternate if you want to pave that, and then the beach area, peninsula campground improvements. And, also the gated storage area. So if you were to consider all those as maybe the high priority items, it would come in roughly about 920,000 to 1.3 million as a project. All right. In terms of overall priorities for Blacktail, did you have comments or thoughts on if you feel that this is a good approach, or if there are other things that you would want to see as more of a higher priority for Blacktail?
Candace, this is Brad, and I do have one question on the choice of the moving the boat ramp to where you're planning as of now, where you want to move it, and versus moving it to a little bit off the main lake area to well, let's see, do we just stop on back oh gosh, just off that point and back in the back bay. So if you come around to the west of where it exists now, and you come around that point, moving it back in that back bay. The only reason I state that is people have problems with a lot of waves hitting boats as they're trying to load or unload out on the main lake, and they have difficulties, especially older people have difficulties getting their boat on their trailer or getting it off because of the waves. Now, it does help to go back into that corner a little bit, but it's also a corner where larger waves come back into that area. That's why it's rocked along the shoreline so much more. And I was just concerned about that, if it would make a difference if we looked at the boat ramp back in that back bay area where they could come off on this much quieter waters and then work their way out onto the main channel, on main lake.
You're thinking back in this area?
Yes, somewhere in there.
Okay.
It's deep in there also.
It's deep. All right. It's a consideration, the reason we had moved it here at this point was so that any traffic who wanted to come launch their boat could do so without driving through the campground.
I understand.
Yep, come through,
Yep.
do that, and then leave again without going through the. So that was the only consideration that we took in the actual relocation. We're kind of hoping this would be a little bit more protected, but again, maybe it's not. So I don't know if there's something we could build out here to help.
It's definitely better than where it's at now. I will admit that.
Okay.
Definitely.
Good to know. All right.
But if you were to put that back on that point, like Brad was talking about, that long peninsula sticking out there, if that's gonna be a swim, beach, water recreation area, then you're gonna have everybody going by the swimmers.
True.
Well, if you, you're putting the beach on the east side of that peninsula, aren't you? You're not planning on because the west side of that peninsula is deep, deep water.
Yeah, so it's on the east side. It's right here.
So the boat ramp would be on that west side of it and back in some. But, I understand the parking and the traffic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Fully appreciate it.
And how did everybody feel about the priorities and how those ranked?
The road makes sense to me. Being number one, that you want to get, the traffic out of there so we can start organizing camping.
Jeremy just.
What? Well, I guess, I'm sorry, I'm probably a little old school here, but I like to look at things before I have to make decisions on them, and getting all this information just within the last 20 minutes, I have a hard time, I can't read it for one thing, I'm sorry, but I like to decipher the information before I have to make a decision. That's just my personal opinion.
Yep, absolutely, understood.
And I think one thing, and I don't think Candace is looking for like too many decisions, maybe just guidance. And I don't think, and I'm sure she doesn't need it today. You can certainly forward any emails you send her, or just forward them to me and I can send it through too. If you do it after today, I think she just trying to get the information out and then get some feedback whenever it may be.
So Jeremy just emailed us, I mean, all this detail, so I wonder, is it fair to say you're looking for advice on the priority areas for each campsite?
For each, yes, yep. So, again, just general thoughts, and if you feel that it's appropriate to like start working on like the beach peninsula before we do the main campground, or, should we kind of think of reversing that order, was one of my questions here.
Yeah, so I think like the two, two goals are prioritized, and then also if something just isn't right. Something if you see that, you know what, man, if we dig into that forest land by the beach, the people are gonna be upset, it's not gonna go. If there's, you know what I mean, something like that. I think those are the two areas she's looking for. Something on the map that just, you know what, like Brad brought up, you know what, I like this over here. Not that it has to be, but just if you see something, and then also the prioritization. What order should we be doing these things in? A good example, I mean, and if we don't want to, you guys, if you want an opportunity to read through this, and we can, like I said, email anything to Candace or do or anything along the, or to me. But like one example is Epping Springbrook, pretty high up the priority list right now. We have that new driveway in. It's kind of hard to do a lot of other things without it, but it's kind of expensive too. There's some little things you can do, but that's one of those things like where it'd be nice to hear, hey, we need to go ahead. I know it's expensive, do it, or well, maybe we're just going to do some little things at Epping and wait a year or two to do that. I think some of those things, if you read through and look, I understand David's concerns about, hey, I'm trying to take in a lot of information and not in looking at it little. So maybe it is the best way to give you guys an opportunity to read through it, and then whatever way you want to get back to us with your input.
I would certainly appreciate that, Jeremy, because I guess, in my mind, common sense tells me that no matter what park it is, infrastructure is number one. I mean, when you build a house, you got to have a good foundation. So to me, same thing. If we're rebuilding our parks, we got to have infrastructure before we can do anything. So,
Karen's at the mic.
Yeah, I would hesitate against having more than a quorum of the board giving Jeremy feedback on this, because really, if you have more than the quorum, you have a quorum or more of the members giving him feedback on something, you're really discussing public business, and it really should be in an open meeting, really. So I would not recommend that. Same thing.
So,
Huh? No, one at a time. If one at a time, if you're talking about the same thing, you give feedback. A quorum or a majority of the park board gives feedback on something through email, you're creating a meeting. Because
But
you're
if-
discussing. But
you think
as
it
as your legal advisor, that is, my opinion, is different, is based on AG opinions and what state law says, really, so.
So we could make a decision at the next meeting. If we wanted to provide input, we could provide it at the next meeting.
Yes, that would be much better. Thank you,
That's
Steve.
pretty easy.
That actually makes.
thanks, Karen. I'll stand corrected.
Also,
Yeah,
just like if we printed off this document and wrote our general concerns or ideas of change this, do that, should be priority, and handed it to Jeremy for him to consider, or just, is that same thing as an email? Let the record state that she said yes. Okay.
And we can go through kind of your thoughts at our next meetings, if you want me to just explain things today and let you digest that, and then we'll reconvene next month and get your thoughts on that, and give us more time to kind of get our draft plan together. if
Yep.
That sounds good.
That
Okay.
sounds like a plan. So,
All right. So moving on to Epping Springbrook. So again, we think the highest priority that would make the biggest difference is actually redeveloping this entrance road to connect into the items. So that it is an expensive item, especially when you consider all the stormwater improvements that could go with that. So that's a little bit unknown at this point, but again, it would make a world of difference for what's going on down here. Right now, we have a budget figure of about 600,000 for that new entrance road and relocating the dump station. We also show adding a comfort station here. We can get water, which would be like $500,000 for that comfort station. And then starting with these RV pull-through sites so that we can also improve the tent areas. One of the highest things that I think you need to get done out here is as we're developing these sites is getting improved electricity out here. Right now, it does not function very well, and it has a lot of times that these blow out when people are trying to use them. So that will also make a big difference. That's kind of the higher priority items for here. Second would be continued development of this road up here and maybe this recreational area, so kind of the medium priority. After that, it would be the day use area and expansion of this, but again, that's contingent on Fish and Game moving that boat access over. Since this is actually a fairly decent boat access, I have a feeling that this would be a very low priority to move that for Game and Fish, so that recreational area expansion over here might be a longer term thing, but it'll still function much better in terms of campground, getting this infrastructure in. Any initial thoughts or comments on this plan?
Boy, comfort stations are expensive.
Yes, they are.
It's bonkers.
All right. I can move on.
One question.
Yes.
For example, comfort stations, if we were to get rural water into these facilities or these parks, would it change those costs?
No.
What if we called as an individual instead of a government entity for a price? It just seems like as soon as the government asks for anything, it doubles the cost of everything.
Oh. Yeah, so these prices were just from a manufacturer. So we talked to Romtech, they do precast buildings. And we got to figure, and the thing that would actually determine the cost is, how many restrooms and how many showers and do you want, how much space for storage? So those are the things that actually help determine that cost. So we've seen them maybe as low as like 300,000, but 500,000 is a pretty good number for a couple of showers, and then restrooms with men's and women's separated with like maybe 3 stalls in each. So maybe at Epping Springbrook, it could be a smaller comfort station than that versus something that, we'd want out at Blacktail, for instance. So moving on to Coda Ray, some of the higher priority items that we saw was, this is undeveloped. It's easier to start working on this piece up here. So let's start by getting this road and a parking lot in here and trails down to the shoreline with maybe a fishing pier or shoreline fishing opportunities and a shelter. We heard a lot in the feedback from our master plan process that there were people concerned about shoreline fishing opportunities and providing more of those. So we wanted to make sure that, those kind of ranked up there in terms of our initial improvements so that we're accounting for that use. And by doing that, you're kind of taking the pressure off of your main campground a little bit for that. So second in priority, so more of the medium, would be actually redeveloping this entrance road. So it's just one entrance in and out, and redeveloping a dump station down here, because this would have to go up in grade. It would require this retaining wall, and then just redeveloping this loop. And it's just very minimal that you would have to do down here. For now, just leave this as the beach. You can just leave this as the boat ramp and worry about flopping those sometime in the future. It's not a high priority for those to switch locations at this point. It seems to be functioning fairly well as is. But at the time it actually does need to be redeveloped, that's when you would actually make those improvements and swap those around. So again, for Coda Ray, starting some of that northern park development, we're saying roughly about 335,000 to 485,000 for that. All right. Moving on to Little Egypt. What we thought as a high priority is, one, do it while it gets good, is make all your existing campsites pull-through sites. So if the Corps is amenable to that, now is the time to do that, make them all function a little bit better, you're set. Also a high priority is finishing paving this. So where it ends up by the golf course, finishing actual bituminous pavement, start by bringing in this entrance road, past these campsites, and over to this parking lot. And it would be nice to kind of move that parking lot over a little bit so it's on a more level ground versus where it's really steep. It'll still work with your winter access. It'll just be at a slightly different angle over here. But it'll just function so that there'll be less prone to erosion at that point. So those are kind of what we see as the higher priority. Second in priority would be maybe finishing this loop around here and redeveloping a dump station and going out, as well as making this connection to the campsite. So if these are pulled through sites, they can leave along this road, hit the dump station on their exit out. Also of medium priority would be developing this day use recreation area. So more of these parking facilities, playground shelters, more shelters out here, and this trail system. That would just, provide more of that, where you would see the higher demand of those day use activities. And then low priority would be any of this development within here for additional campsites. You would only need to do those if you're seeing a high amount of demand for additional campsites, if these are not meeting your current needs. So at that point is when you would actually kind of add on to campground sites within this internal area. So with Little Egypt, for the paving of this road and finishing off these campsites, adding a picnic shelter and the parking lot is roughly about 500,000 to maybe 750,000. Any comments on this before I move on?
Other than that, if the Corps is gonna let us make them, spots pull through, if they're gonna allow us to remove trees, we should do that before they have a change of heart, I think.
I've been kind of talking with the people down in Riverdale, and I've gotten like the tree mitigation plan. So if we remove this many trees, we have to put in this many trees, and especially they have no problem with. They're in support of us taking out some of those Russian olives, and that's what are all stopping us from those pull-through sites. And then, but then we still, like I said, they have a plan that for every tree we have to take out, we have to put in so many, depending on size. But they're very open-minded to it. So I feel like I agree with you though, Barry. Something like just strike while the iron's hot here. Don't wait around.
All right. Again, I talked about Lookout Park, so just some concrete walks and a picnic shelter. That's pretty low, 50 to 56,000 basically. McGregor Dam, I'm saying right now, there are no high priorities. Right now, this site is a little bit unknown until the state makes a determination on these dam improvements. So you are at risk if you put in too much more money or investments into this park site, not knowing, what might happen with the dam in the future. So we're saying everything on here might be more of a medium or, deferred priority. Once that determination has been made, then you can kind of consider what improvements you might want to do out at McGregor. Our initial thoughts are some of the first things that you might want to do is develop these pull-through sites on the eastern end, and then develop this as more of that day use recreation area. Beyond that, any of these campground improvements that we show, do enlargement, over on the western side, only as needs dictate. So again, if you are seeing any increase in camping reservations and that there's just not enough spots out on the site, which is not the case right now, then that's when those improvements could be made. The only thing that would be nice would be, again, simple things like improved playground, maybe adding a swimming beach and improving the boat launch. So right now that is a pretty small boat launch. So it would be nice to kind of widen that out and make that better for actually getting your boat down into the water with some parking. So keeping it fairly simple right now, and then just adding on as needs dictate for that. So no high priorities for McGregor Dam at this time. Again, other things to think about are just any other planning and design things you want to do. So any like determining future park feasibility, like a winter park, or any trail planning activities. So right now, the high priority totals are coming in at roughly 3.3 to 4.7 million in terms of projects. And then I also broke down the medium priority projects, so I talked about those and all of those. You'll see those itemized out, and the medium priorities are coming in at roughly 5 to 7 million for those. So again, our next steps would just be refining the estimates and the phasing. So next month we can talk about your thoughts, if there are changes that we need to make to those, and we'll be preparing the draft master plan. So that's the actual written document for that. And then after that goes through the review process, we'll finalize that for approval and adoption.
Okay, any other immediate questions or comments for master plan discussion?
I have one. Means we're gonna discuss this. Could you, in a perfect world, put together what you think this would add to your annual budget if all these parks were completed to this master plan?
Yep, I can give that a shot.
I just had a thought about the, maybe it'd be with the My Site reservation website. Is there any way we can track traffic, even if all the parks are filled up, but people still coming there and thinking, ooh, I want to go, but it's full, just so we can, think about, wow, and maybe dates, times, but just, oh, it'd be nice if people keep coming to the Little Egypt one, so we would need more sites, and it's specifically on these dates. Traffic counter. Like, well, on the website to see, even if it's full, people are still continuing to come there, so like the want is there.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'll ask around that. Like how many, is there a bump in hits the 3 weeks before the 4th of July? How many people are going on there and not reserving sites? Those kind of questions. I can ask what we can do.
Because there might, Jeremy, do you know if Alex ever mentioned if there was a waiting list capability?
Yeah, I thought there.
I think there might be a waiting list capability, because otherwise you really wouldn't be able to distinguish web traffic from people just coming in looking versus actually wanting to. But the waiting list might be a good indication of how long people are on there. So we can look at that one.
I think just one thought that I had initially was, obviously our peak construction season is also peak camping season. So, any thoughts to if we did the priorities to Blacktail Dam, basically would all that service be shut down for 6 weeks?
For Blacktail Dam, that bypass road could be constructed without affecting any of the existing routes through there. So you have that existing route through the campground right now. And so that at least the bypass road could be done independently. The other nice thing is that internal campsites right now, there's just a lot of green space there and a playground and a couple buildings. So you're not affecting any of the campsites or maybe the roadway system. So it should be easy to construct those off of those and then just phase in the rest.
Any other comments or questions for master plan?
I just was asking Commissioner Ramberg if Dennis could build roads.
Well, I was going to ask that question. I was going to say, Dennis, how much of this would you like to bite off? But
I think there's parts of those roads that we will be able to.
Dennis, you're being encouraged to get on a mic.
None of these stretches of road are real long, so I mean, You know, I think the longest stretch of road would be at Blacktail. The one at Springbrook is, that's just, I mean, ain't much more than just a driveway, really.
Yeah, no, I think we can do quite a bit of the road part of it. Now, when it gets paving or whatever, that's a different account. That, I mean, then we have to go a little different direction. What's that? Yeah. Or whatever hard surface you decide to put on some of these.
So I'm saying that because obviously it would take special equipment, I would think, to do that.
Right. Unless we, well, there's some other options. There's some other options that would darn sure help with the financials.
Okay. Mr. Kemp, anything? Nope. Okay. Anybody else have any discussion? All right. I guess we're just gather our thoughts and feelings for the next meeting and, correct? That's what I'm gathering? Okay. All right, parks update.
I think there's an 11 o'clock meeting in here, and we do have one more issue that Karen wants to discuss, so just like always, I'll be real quick. Blacktail, I'm in discussion with Game and Fish. We have one of the fishing piers that got blown away in that big storm this past summer, and it's currently on land. In discussions with them to get it replaced, not gonna be a big deal, gonna hire a crane, just trying to figure out how much they're gonna pay for and how much we're gonna pay for before we finalize that. But we won't do it till spring anyways, but it'll get put up back right away in the spring. Blacktail's busy with ice fishermen, both people that live out there and with people that are going out on the weekends and at different times. Had some usable cross-country ski trails out there for a week to 10 days. It was really cold. It was that stretch over Christmas when it was cold. Still working on it. We ran that machine out there 5 times to kind of groom the trails and learning a lot and keep moving forward with it. Epping Springbrook, again, busy with fish houses out there all the time when I drive by. Had some trails. They were a little more difficult to ski on, but they would have been also, if you're an experienced cross-country skier, maybe a little bit more fun. Little Egypt, the ice skate that we put in has been very busy, very busy. Went out there yesterday. There were 5 or 6 trucks with trailers that had been pulling their, you could tell, pulled up and drove out, and then drove out on their side-by-sides. And then straight out, when you walk out there, there's somewhere between 15 and 18 houses, something like that, that are right out from Little Egypt. So, and then just up the road towards Lund Landing, you see a bunch more. So people are using it. That's good. Lookout Park right now, I'm just collecting information on doing some irrigation out there. McGregor, right now I'm starting to collect quotes for putting in that vault toilet we were approved from Garrison Diversion. Want to get that going in the spring. One other thing I will say about McGregor is it's my opinion that we should push Game and Fish hard to keep that a park forever. Just my opinion. I like the idea that the public has use of lands, and also that land is locally controlled. Sometimes federal lands are a little tougher for us to use. So just my opinion. I think that because it's one of those deals that once it's gone, it's gone. And then Coteray, again, been pretty busy with ice fishing. I'm looking at hosting some type of fishing tournament / event. I don't want it to so much be like a prize, a winning biggest fish wins thing. I want it to be more like just getting kids out fishing, give them an opportunity. Working with a couple of sporting goods stores and towns to be more like every kid that gets a fish gets a fishing lure or something. Everyone that catches a fish gets a lure and some things like that. Looking at doing it February 19th or the 26th. Kind of thinking about advertising kind of like they do at the elementary schools. If it's under real feel -10, we're not doing it on the 19th. We're going to push it back 1 week. I don't want to run an event that's just absolutely miserable to be at. I mean, I know we have to enjoy and embrace being in the cold, but at the same time, we don't need to be -10 with 15-mile-an-hour winds, encouraging kids to be out on the ice. So those 2 weekends, I think that's what I'm going to do something where, hey, if it's real feel under this, predicted to be, I'm going to cancel it the night before, and we're going to go the following weekend. Just a couple other things off the topic of the parks. All of our reimbursables for game and fish have been submitted. I expect to get checks back for all those, which is some improvements we made at Blacktail, our agreement with McGregor Dam, and then the fish cleaning station at Blacktail. We get reimbursed for all those things 50%. Same thing with our Garrison grant for the improvements at Little Egypt. That's been submitted, so when we'll get a check back for that. All of those DJ grant signs, those are the ones that we saw before, those big red signs that were that had in cooperation of whatever. We took all of them down, stripped them and repainted them. They look really nice. Picnic tables, painting them. Already scheduled 3 dates for concerts this summer. I've also went and found and dug up the movie screen that the CVB and Parks and Rec both lost and couldn't find, and I dug it up and found it. Looking at doing some movies in the parks or something like that. Just trying to, maybe not a big deal, just something else we got going on there.
Is that finders keepers?
Nope, but I talked to both entities before and asked them if they had it, and they both said, yeah, I think so, but I don't know where. And they said, if you find it, let me know. So I went on a mission and found it. Had a little help too. Had some other people help me find it. But it's excited about it. Just think it'll be a fun thing. It's not a big deal. It's a movie. It's like 20 feet high, some 18 feet high or something, and it's just a inflatable movie screen. Just get a projector, play some movies. And then continue work at firewood. We've done a good job of keeping it organized, keep plugging away on our firewood. Hopefully we no burn bans. We can sell a bunch of firewood this winter. The one other thing, like I said, Blacktail Dam, Karen has something.
17 years ago. This is how far back it goes. So Commissioner Montgomery and the rest of them, we had, when I started the county, we had issues with the loop at Blacktail Dam. The county would haul the gravel, county highway would haul the gravel, blade the road, push the snow. Well, then it got to be where, no, they didn't want us to. The association got involved. And then it was no, Blacktail Dam or Blacktail Township was taken care of. It's quite a circle. Anyway, if you remember correctly, but it all came to a commission meeting 17 years ago, about this time of year, and nothing's changed. But at the time, $2,500 was put in by the association, $2,500 put in by county parks, $2,500 put in by Blacktail Township. And then, of course, county highway would do the first $2,500 in lieu. Anything over that, then we build back to that account. Sorry, Beth was there too. There's a long history here. Anyway, so that's where it laid. And I don't remember the year, but shortly, very shortly after that, we had a heck of a snowstorm, and we had two different contractors out there, and of course county highway, trying to get it open all the way around for those people to get in to go to work. I wished I knew the exact number, but I want to say it was like in $38,000 or $48,000. Well, that $2,500 didn't go very far. So it kind of has since then just kind of went away, and then after that, the park board would say, "Hey, can you blade a road?" We'd go blade it, or haul a load of gravel. We kind of been doing it that way. In the last couple of years, Blacktail Township bladed it once a month. We'd blade it the second time of the month. Kind of go in that direction, and I don't think either one has even billed that account. I know we haven't. Probably more my fault that we haven't billed it because we're already 48,000. You just kind of, but, so we want to get, Karen wants to get straightened out a bit, and I'll let her go from there. That's just a little of the history. Go ahead.
Okay, so what we really want to do, because we already have an agreement in place for Blacktail Dam Association to give us $2,500 every year. Blacktail Township now has told us that they don't want to help blade the road anymore. They just want to pay their $2,500 a year and then be done with it, really, because they're concerned about subject to possibly being subject to liability on a road that's not really a township road. So they just want to pay their $2,500 and move on, I guess, at that point, really. So the issue came about whether or not the county highway department, I'm trying to think how to put this really. So apparently the county highway department has been doing some work on this outer loop road, which is actually owned by the park board, without really billing the park board. And so I guess I really want to know what the park board's views are on, do you expect the county just to do it just for not charging it back to the park board, or do you want the county highway to continue to do that, to blade that road, or do whatever it needs to be done to that road to fix it or whatever, and then bill that back to the park board or not?
So the whole loop is a park board road, right? Is that inside and outside? Because there's an inside loop and an outside loop. Are they both park board, or are they?
The inside belongs to the association. I don't know if this.
We have a lease with the association for the inner loop roads, but it's still park board property really. But we have a lease agreement for the inside loop, the inner loop road, but not the outer loop road.
What kind of lease agreement?
Yes, under the, yep,
So that's not in question. It's the outer loop road.
correct, yep.
My head around it.
So does the Blacktail Dam Association have any interest in a lease on the outer loop road? I mean, so that they have control of maintaining the outer loop when they're working on the inner loops?
Well, when we were going through the lease agreement with the Blacktail Association, they never indicated that they wanted to do anything with the outer loop road because they knew that the county was already really doing that really. And to tell you the truth, it's like when I had a conversation with the president of the association, and I don't think they're interested in our loop road basically really. So yeah, I don't think that's an option.
Could we, just because I got to beat a dead horse, could the county commission authorize Karen to spend whatever amount of time she needed to help Blacktail become a city?
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Honestly,
that's not in my wheelhouse.
You're, the township wants to take the money and just usurp any responsibility for the road. I mean, you guys could take control of your own destiny out there, and just last. It won't be the last time I mention this.
No, I know. Yeah, maybe if you say it enough times, Steve, that it'll actually come.
Becomes
to fruition.
reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and again, some of this in the last few years is partly my fault. I didn't build the 4-entity checkbook because we kind of had an agreement with verbal agreement with Blacktail Township, and it's been working. And then they spent they said they spent $100 and some thousand on graveling around there. Well, then next time would be our turn. Whatever. We were kind of headed the right way, but then they found out they didn't find out, but it's come more to light that it's a Williams County Park Board roads. So here we are, 17 years later, same spot.
Okay,
Well,
so the task at hand right now, I'm gathering, is it okay with the park board if Blacktail Township just gives us the $2,500 and we as the park board figure out how to maintain that road? Is that correct?
Yep, and also, the part that you want to have the county highway department in it, really, so.
Yeah, the one thing I would keep in mind is the responsibility of the county itself, in the fact that there's residents, quite a few residents, 20, 30 residents, full-time out there. And isn't there a responsibility by the county to keep that road maintained?
Well, the road is actually owned by the park board, so not really the county itself, but the park board.
The entrance into Blacktail is used as a through road to go out the north side. occasionally out the west side also, because of county roads coming into it. Or township roads, I should say, excuse me.
Those are township.
Yeah, township roads. So my question is either the township or the county should still have, and probably the township should have a large responsibility there to keep that road maintained.
Well, no, because the township is only really responsible for roads that is designates as township roads, and it is not designated this is a township road because this road is owned by the park board.
Well, doesn't that make perfect sense, and we have to take care of it as a park board? I mean, if it's our road, we gotta take care of it.
So I think what she's asking, and we probably need a motion by the park board to hire Williams County Highway Department to maintain that road. Am I correct?
Yeah, that would be a really great motion.
Okay.
Yeah, and also on that,
Can't understand you better.
Okay, is there a motion to this effect?
I would make that motion that the county park board would hire county highway to maintain the inner loop. Or, I thought, one. Oh, okay.
Okay, is there a second?
What is the motion? I'm sorry. I didn't.
The motion is to basically hire the Williams County Highway Department to maintain the outer loop road of Blacktail Dam on behalf of the park board.
Okay. And is there any clarification on the inner roads?
Well, I'll entertain a second on this motion and then we can jump into discussion.
I'll second it. Let's discuss.
Okay, I moved and seconded. The clarification on the inner loop roads is the Blacktail Dam Association leases the inner loop roads and maintains them.
yes.
Is that also, I guess I'm looking at the peninsula. The inner loop on the peninsula, since there's campsites out there and access to the beach area and everything else, is that considered inner or outer?
Inner.
What's that?
Inner.
I can't understand.
It's considered the inner loop road.
Inner loop road, okay. Huh, okay.
Is the outer loop road, 100% of the outer loop road is on park board property?
Correct.
Any other discussion on the motion?
The only other
We're gonna
discussion.
still collect the 2,500 from the township and the association?
Well, that was
Yes.
gonna be my next
Yes,
question. I don't
yes.
know.
All right.
I don't know where that's at.
Yeah.
The last 2 years, we've collected $10,000. So 5,000 from each entity. One of the years we collect 75.
No, it's not. We collect $2,500 from each entity.
Yep, so over a total of the last 2 years, 1 year we collected 7,500, so someone somehow paid twice in 1 year, and 1 year we collect 2,500 total. So we've collected from the two entities 5,000 over the last 2 years.
Yep, and we already collected from the association for this upcoming year, and I've instructed Julie to go ahead and bill out the township because we didn't really know what they wanted to do, so yes.
Karen, does that have to be in Barry's motion then or not?
No, because I have a separate agreement with Blacktail Township, so.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we're getting the motion right.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Discussion?
And the only other thing maybe I would like to add to is just authorize the chairman to sign whatever documents need to be signed.
I'm good with that.
Me too.
I do have one, I'm sorry to nag on this point, but that down on the peninsula, there's the beach and the campgrounds. And yet, I would think that would be part of the responsibility to make sure that there's good access to the beach and the campgrounds. The road is in good shape. And I'm not saying that Blacktail would ever not take care of the road, but partial responsibility, I would think we would want to make sure that that road stays in good shape.
So,
In the past, if we flooded, that area, those roads do get flooded at times.
and
Not
I
that
would,
it's-
I mean, I guess my thought is if the agreement with the association is that they're maintaining that inner loop and all the inner loops that, I mean, we expect them to make sure that they maintain it as such, right? If that's part of the lease agreement, correct?
Yep.
But if they're not, then I guess we need to address the lease agreement or address why they're not taking care of it.
Yep.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
That's understandable. I just want to make sure that we don't have any liability issues or any issues. But if it's not maintained to our standard, we just need to make sure they understand that also.
I don't think they've had an issue with it that I've heard. I know I've talked to, you know, they have a list of volunteers that goes through the office in here in this building. And so they're all volunteers. They know their responsibilities. A lot of the equipment, you know, the bigger equipment they used, even though it's owned by the park district, it was donated by residents out there. So I think that was kind of their plan all along. I haven't heard anything that they're not okay with it. Little concerned maybe a little bit more about the mowing end of it because Mike Herring did all that and he's had some surgery and we've kind of had to, we picked up a little bit of his slack this year, but we've already been talking about that as far as him and finding other people to do it next year. But it hasn't been an issue up to this point.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Bo,
Yes.
Shanda,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
Just a heads up that the March meeting, I have a certification that I've been certified for about 20 years that they've scheduled in Bismarck for during that time. We'll discuss it in February, but we may look at either canceling or moving that meeting. It's playground safety inspector certification, something that goes along with the job. So, so just something a heads up. So when we come around to the February meeting, I'll give you an update on where we're at with that. Other than that, that's all I got.
Okay. Anybody else have anything for the good of the order? If not, we will adjourn at 10:58.
Plenty of time before that 11 o'clock meeting.